We're here on the banks of the River Lee, where something has been attacking and killing full-grown Canada geese, which are big, powerful birds. It's interesting that at the time of the Olympics, we have an Olympic monster in the river. Richard.
Hello Richard, Mike Wells, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming to discuss the great Olympic monster of the River Lee.
Yes, well, fascinating. So what was it you saw and when?
We were sat on the back deck of my boat, and there were a group of Canada geese, and there was one goose a little bit separated from the group. Suddenly, this goose went vertically down into the water. Me and Steve kind of looked at each other in amazement, and we were kind of looking to see if it reappeared.
There have been a number of theories about what the creature in the River Lee is, some of them more fanciful than others. Some people have suggested crocodiles and alligators. These are tropical reptiles, and they are formidable beasts. They can kill full-grown tigers, but they're not going to be found in the middle of London. It's far too cold. Same with python. I investigated a very similar case in Lancashire in 2002. Witnesses there said there was something the size of a car swimming around, attacking full-grown swans.
Yeah.
And I was saying to my colleague, there is no way a big predator can live in this lake, just no way. Half an hour later I was eating my words because I saw it come to the surface no more than 6 feet away from me, and it was an 8-foot-long Wells catfish. Whether it is still on this stretch of the river or not, I don't know. The river starts in Luton and it ends up in the Thames, so the creature could be anywhere. It's a tradition to give monsters names. The Loch Ness Monster is called Nessie, the monster of Loch Morar is called Morag, the monster of Lake Okanagan in Canada is Ogopogo. So I would like to take this opportunity to officially call the Olympic monster of the River Lee Old Greg.
So another fallacy of the Green Games is what's actually happening to places like Leighton Marshes, which is, if you've ever been there, it's one of those parts of London that makes you think that you're not actually in London if you ignore the pylons. So when they started digging all this green land up, they suddenly went, oh, there's a reason why there's been mounds of earth and piles of earth on top of it. It's because there's a lot of asbestos from the buildings from before the Second World War. Oh dear, this is a problem. And the other thing that they've done to that now is because it's a greenfield site. I don't know if you know what a greenfield site is, but it's a patch of land that hasn't actually been developed on. Once you've put a temporary structure like a basketball court on there, it suddenly becomes a brownfield site. So it sets this legal precedent, which then means you can then sell that land and the sky above it for further regeneration.
It's been very hard for us to make our voice known. That's why we're here today. That's why we have to come and we have to make a racket. It's not because we haven't exhausted every legitimate channel, because we have, and we have not been listened to.
In Waltham Forest, we have really done badly in terms of legacy from the Olympic Games. We've seen how much damage has been done to the land on Leighton Marsh. They have dug up what was under there, the contents of a landfill site. And we believe the whole thing is too high a price to pay for 5 weeks of games into our countryside in one of the poorest parts of the capital.
Well, I think the whole thing all along is mirror image language. It's the opposite of what it says. So you see a big sign saying improving the image of construction when you're ripping some building down and digging a major hole in the ground. So it actually means improving the image of destruction. And regeneration generally means degeneration. What is this? You know, this is 2-3 weeks worth of sports day stuff that is supposed to totally reinvent 500, 1,000 years of London history and just brush it aside, you know, for a corporate sports day.
The word Olympic didn't come into the Games here until 1636. The Games were started in 1612 Because the Olympic Games had stayed here since the 1600s, the Olympic Commission came here to learn about the Olympic Games, so that is really special.
For 1 second, I'm just going to put my phone on silent within my little man bag. Right, okay, so it was a much bigger event 400 years ago, so they had things like horse racing going on, there was wrestling, which we still do a little bit of. One of the most popular events involved a person holding a pig and attempting to sing at the same time. Well, it's a piglet really rather than a pig, but if you imagine the piglet is going to wriggle quite a lot, and so you've got to try and hold it while singing at the same time. Climbing the greasy pole, where women would scrabble to get to the top of a greasy pole and retrieve some petticoats from the top, which they then won.
When you learn swordsmanship with a traditional English backsword, such as this, which is the steel sword, obviously when you're training to sword fight, it's a very dangerous art and skill to learn. So traditionally people would use a wooden waster, use the cudgel.
Basically, you're out to hit anywhere. Try to be careful of, obviously, the groin area. It's quite painful. I got my kneecap split open with a steel a couple of months ago. That wasn't pleasant. Fairly serious, drew blood.
Originally, opposed to fighting for a prize bag of money, you would fight for a good hat with a good cockade of feathers. If at the end of the day that you won and you became champion, just wearing the hat around the local community was such a symbol of kudos, if you like.
It was super 16th century, 17th century bling.
The shin kicking is probably the most popular event for spectators. Personally, I don't see why they couldn't have shin kicking in the Olympics, and I mean, there's certainly some other sports in the Olympics which I think you could quite easily replace. So probably synchronised swimming I would replace with shin kicking. I think people just like watching people get hurt.
I like this because it is a community event, whereas the hardest sport lover in the middle of London is going to be hard pushed to feel it's really on their doorstep as a community event.
This has always been about being very inclusive. It doesn't matter who you are. And again, in terms of the sports, anybody can enter the sports. There's no us and them. There's no corporate sponsors and VIPs box and things like that. It's all, everybody's in it together.
You've got the major franchises, Coca-Cola and McDonald's, and this is an eco-green games. Dow Chemicals, who've been responsible for horrors in India, are doing the wrap that goes around the Olympic Stadium, making it look like a wedding cake. Everything is just turned on its head. Everything is absurd and quite ridiculous.
When London bid to host the Games, we promised the world that we would have the most sustainable Games ever. And until January, I was a member of something called the Commission for a Sustainable London 2012. We were asked to look at the deal that the London Games organisers had with Dow Chemical. And the more I looked into it, the more compelling evidence was presented to me by organisations like Amnesty International and the Bhopal Medical Appeal to show that Dow Chemical bears responsibility for this tragedy. In the end, I wasn't able to feel comfortable being part of a body that defended Dow Chemical and claimed that it was a sustainable company.
On the night of the 2nd, 3rd December 1984, there was a huge gas leak from a pesticide factory, Union Carbide-owned pesticide factory in Bhopal. This was a factory that was in, a very poor state, and it's true to say that even the safety systems had been switched off. So, unfortunately, the people there didn't stand much of a chance. The gas was incredibly poisonous. In the first 72 hours, there was 7,000 to 10,000 people killed. Now, we accept that Dow never owned or operated the plant, as we are so often told in the media, but they did acquire Union Carbide outright, and they have a very strange relationship with Union Carbide, which is one of not just ownership, they're effectively one and the same. High-level executives from one sit on the board of the other.
Dow Chemical in Bhopal is responsible for a situation that is seeing generation after generation of children born with the most appalling birth defects. The tragic irony of them sponsoring the Paralympics is pretty overwhelming, to be frank.
Sponsors like BP, these large people who've been associated with all kinds of forms of pollution are actually now wearing the green jacket of being the eco-heroes rescuing this wonderful parkland that we're going to be handed back.
Rio Tinto is providing the medals that actually go around the athlete's neck. These are one of the most iconic images of the Games, but unfortunately, the medal comes from mines that are really environmentally problematic, and the local communities are fighting to get those mines either closed down or run more responsibly.
My name is Benny Wenda. I'm from West Papua. I'm also ex-political prisoner and independent leader, and now I'm living in exile. Rio Tinto is a part of the problem in West Papua. Even the human rights violations, our mountain being destroyed, our river polluted. This company indirectly or directly support Indonesia committed genocide my people. Rio Tinto need to admit it. The goal is the blood of my people.